There's a bunch of movies showcasing why it's a bad idea bringing back dinosaurs or anything really prehistoric back from the past. When I mean a lot, I mean a lot of movies. But nothing shows us this more than Jurassic Park. I don't mean the movies, by the way, although the first three were the most eerie of the franchise. Those films are child's play compared to the books. Remember this Carnotaurus that got took out by this Rex with ease? Well, in the books, the Carnotaurus make the T-Rexes themselves have a panic attack when they see the horde menaces. And speaking of T-Rexes, I wish Zeb, the Indominus, or even Acid 87 would try anything with the novel Rexes. Nothing like a 10+ ton wall of muscle that can toss a car into a tree without a second thought. It's been a while since I talked about the novels of this franchise, and with a new Primitive War movie coming out soon, I just want to cover the Jurassic Park books before it releases. In the Discord, a lot of you were saying to read the Primitive War book because if I liked Michael Crichton's book, then I'd love this. So I'm considering ordering an audiobook to see if it's really as good as people say. I mean, fighting dinosaurs in Vietnam sounds like a cool concept, not gonna lie. By the way, with YouTube's new AI bot releasing soon, I just want to let this thing know that I just turned 22 a few days ago. This probably won't help a lot, but the thought of me having to give up my ID or credit card, it's a big no-no in my book, so I'll try anything at this point to avoid it. Anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. When it comes to the Jurassic trilogy, there's a good amount of things you'd want to stay away from, but I don't think anything could beat the variants in the book. So I'm going to be running over the absolute worst dinosaurs you could encounter if you were in the Jurassic Park books. Let me ask all of you this. When you go to a zoo or even a closed safari, what's the main appeal to the area? It's to see the animals, right? They don't necessarily have to be doing anything extreme. For all we care, they could be sleeping or even just walking once we see these amazing animals. Jurassic Park in the novel was no different. I mean, they created free-roaming herbivores and big carnivores that are so big it's hard to miss. So with that in mind, why in the ever-loving would Wu make this thing? Who goes, you know what, I brought a Carnotaurus back to life, but something's missing, and then gives it the ability to disappear in whatever background it's in. I love green anacondas, they're my favorite snake of all time, and I used to see a lot of them in the country I was raised. Plus, I think the idea of these things being able to eat jaguars on occasion is pretty cool. But almost every time I try to visit a zoo or something, these things are almost always invisible. They're either meshed in with the vegetation or the underbelly blends in with the underwater log. It's not a bad thing, but as a kid I was sometimes disappointed when I couldn't see a really big one in an enclosure. Now as an adult I know that's a good thing because the animal has a wide area and things to hide in, but with the Lost World, why would you give a dinosaur that was supposedly meant for the park the abilities of the chameleon? Their camouflaging ability is so OP that the raptors and the T-Rexes don't dare step into their territory at night. Because at that time their camouflage is just unmatched. This isn't the Indominus Rex's camouflage either. It's more advanced. These guys can blend into a chain link fence, a tree, a brick wall, it simply doesn't matter. And that's how they caught Diego in the book. When Diego and Levine first made contact with Sorna, they were hearing some unusual noises off in the distance. And Levine himself saw a tree slightly move and change texture and thought nothing of it. You best believe I'm making a mad dash if I see a leaf even move funny. And eventually when they were distracted by the call seemingly coming closer, Diego gets dragged away by one of the Carnos and Levine finally makes a beeline for it, but is saved because the Carno attacked his backpack instead. Even in the abandoned workers camp, a pair almost got Dr. Zorn because they blended into the fence. It was only until a light was flashed onto them that they revealed themselves, forcing Tron to run into a shed where they could not follow. I always found that weird though it was an abandoned shed, couldn't they just break it down? Anyway, as for Zorn, the only reason he got out of there alive was because Ellie kept on shining bright lights on them, forcing them to constantly try to adapt and change color, which annoyed them enough to the point where they just upped and left. See bright red or brown, but like those analog horror tapes, if you see something that looks out of place in the novel, you better run or start praying. Praying would be the best option because you can't outrun these things either way if they decide to charge at you. Henry really said for the plot when he made these guys, but he got killed in such a brutal fashion that I feel sorry for him. In the book, believe it or not, Wu is nicer and less naive in a sense compared to the movies where he is this egotistical mad scientist that continues creating unstable abominations to test his skill. But in a Michael Crichton book, being a good person is almost always rewarded with suffering, and no other dinosaur in the novels were as feared as the raptors. These things were absolute units. Imagine combining the human deceiving abilities of Jurassic Park's tree raptors with the crash out mentality as the ones in the Lost World. You get the novel raptors. I mean the raptors here would ram into the electrical fence over and over just to see if there's a slight chance that they could escape. These things don't just behave rapid though, they straight up have the ability to outsmart possibly the most intelligent person in that universe. I said it in the book he's less egotistical, but he still is to an extent. He believes that since he made these animals that he can predict anything about them, their movements, their thought process, and overall the entire way they behaved. This blatant arrogance led him to be taken out in one of the most brutal fashions possible. When Henry was helping Grant turn the power back on, he was suddenly informed by Harding that the raptors left the skyline, which was a bit odd at the time. For all Wu's pride, he still was very aware of their intelligence. He called Ellie to get back inside, but she refused, saying everything's okay. Muldoon himself felt as though something was off and wasn't sure of Wu leaving that door open, but before Wu could make another call for Ellie to come back inside, a shadow descended from the ground and just yanked the scientist into the building. Unlike bears, the raptor didn't wait for Henry to die before he could dig in. The raptor tugged on his intestines while he was still alive, until he finally gave in to the blood loss. But by far the one who had it the worst was Eddie Carr. This guy was the most wholesome person in the entire franchise. In both the book and the movie, he went out of his way to help anyone. Yet in the film he got torn in half, and in the book he was eaten alive by multiple animals at the same time. The raptors found out that they could actually climb up the high height, but they started to do it in waves to perhaps overwhelm everyone. Eddie, in an attempt to try and save the kids, picked up a metal pole and tried to fight off the raptors like a swarm of demons. He got lucky twice. He stabbed one in the eye, which made it fall back, and one just missed his neck. But on the third try, one of the animals used their full weight to grab onto the pole and force Eddie to fall to the jungle floor. At that point, I'd tell someone to just shoot me, because when Eddie fell, every single raptor in that area stopped what they were doing and tore him apart from all sides. When Arby locked himself into the cage, these things realized that this could take a long time to open, so they began to drag the cage into the forest with Arby in it, where they could eventually open it. If I was that kid, I'd be voiding my bowels for every square inch that cage moved. But so far the dinosaurs have had special tactics or insane hacks to get you. The next one was straight up malicious. Imagine a 9-foot tall monster with teeth just looks you in the face and toys with you for fun. As most of you know, the novel Dilophosaurus is much bigger than the movies and is more in line with the real life version. As a matter of fact, it looks pretty damn close. But this time it doesn't just behave playful and not cute. This absolute menace psyched out Nedry. I mean, what am I supposed to do if I'm running from a monster and when I reach home base I don't see it anywhere and think I'm safe? Just for the thing to come out from the front as though it was trolling. The same thing happened to Nedry. His big ass thought he could outrun the thing on the way to the car just for it to be illuminated by the Jeep lights. After that it just became a staring contest for a while until the thing just spat on Nedry's shirt twice, which forced the pumpkin shaped technician to slowly move towards the car. But he dropped eye contact for like a few seconds, and when he looked back up, the dilo spat in his eye and blinded him. It was as though acid was thrown into his face. Then it sliced his stomach open, which left Nedry absolutely flabbergasted. Hell, I would be too. Like my guts were inside just seconds ago. And even then, the thing doesn't stop. It then grabs the guy by the skull, lifts him up into the air as though he was sacrificing Nedry to some deity. And all in time, poor Nedry, in an act of futility, tried stuffing his guts back inside. Mind you, this is the only animal in the book that was this extra when it came to killing. After Nedry became blind and was on the floor, it could have easily dispatched him, but even that wasn't enough. At that point he could have just straight up killed Nedry, but instead decided to lift him up alive and leave him in the air as some sick game until Nedry finally died from blood loss. I mean, if I was in that guy's place, I would have broken the glass and driven away if the door wasn't budging. Because what else are you supposed to do when Jurassic Park's version of death is staring at you in the face? Nedry kinda deserved it because he was the reason a lot of the mishaps in the park happened, but having your guts ripped out and then being held in the air by your head as spikes pierce your cranium is brutal. Not even the smallest dinosaurs were safe from Wu's design though, because for whatever reason he decided to give the compies venom. This is how Hammond ends up dying when he twisted his ankle while running from what he thought was a T-Rex, and the compies, sensing weakness, swarmed him and dug into his flesh, where the venom had a mushroom-like effect of sorts which allowed them to eat Hammond alive while he watched most of it until he died. The craziest part about his death though was that his grandkids basically killed him because they were playing around with T-Rex calls, which confused Hammond. Then there was a universally soul-crushing baby incident where a group of these gremlins broke into a hospital through a window and began eating a baby. Even when the nurse came, it was too late. On a very serious note, if that happened in a real life situation, how do you explain to a parent that their newborn was eaten alive by some dinosaurs? But speaking about babies and being eaten alive, a juvenile Rex was responsible for one of the worst deaths in the park. Although I don't really feel bad for the guy who died this time. Regis was a gaslighter and talked a big game, especially when reassuring Grant that the dinosaurs weren't dangerous. But the moment the T-Rex broke out, homie left Lex and Tim to their fate and just sprinted away. I mean, hate him or love him, the need for survival is strong. But in the biggest plot twist ever, he got killed by a juvenile T-Rex instead of an adult. The juvenile itself walked funny as though it wasn't confident in its steps, which kinda makes sense because it's a novice hunter that still relies on experience for food. If you're a prey item, this can be either a blessing or a curse. For one, you're likely to see it coming, but on the other hand, it doesn't have the experience to deliver a swift killing blow, so you're gonna suffer as it bites you all over trying to find the right spot. And at 8 feet tall and the weight of a brown bear, it was gonna hurt. Regis tried to hide but got found out by the young animal, which played a game of cat and mouse with the man. It knocked the guy down and just stared at him. Then when he got back up, it just knocked him down again and stared. But the third time it grabbed the man and bit his midsection. Its lack of experience worked against the man in this case, and multiple bones in different parts of his body were broken while he was conscious as the young animal tried to kill its prey. The adult Rexes are monsters too. They are more than 10 tons and could throw cars into trees. Not to mention they could swim so well it would give Acid 87 a seizure, and these ones also casually just hunt sauropods, which aren't as soft as the ones in Jurassic World. There is a lot of things in the novel that can kill you, but I honestly think the raptors or the dilophosaurus are the worst things you can run into. Because if you run into both, there's nothing you could really do. The carnos might not pursue you if they find out you see them from a distance away, and the compies only really bother you if you show signs of weakness. The T-Rexes are dangerous, but they just can't compete with the other two medium-sized theropods in terms of threat level to humans. But let me know in the comments what dinosaurs in the books are the worst ones you could possibly encounter. But that's just about it for this one, folks. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And remember kids, if something's been dead for millions of years, it's likely God wanted it that way for a reason.